January 2nd, 1920. In the dark, a single plan spreads across America. Quiet, coordinated, and already out of control. More than 30 cities. One night. The message from the center is simple. Move fast, then count the bodies later. In rooms like this, suspicion becomes paperwork. A name heard once becomes a target because the list needs to be full. And then the doors start opening, some by force. In the rush, warrants blur, rules bend, and fear does the driving. Paperwork can't keep up with panic. So the search comes first. Legal details later, if anyone even asks. Sometimes they hit the wrong address. Sometimes the right one is just a rumor. Either way, someone gets taken. The goal isn't clarity, it's volume. A big night looks like success, even when the evidence is thin as air. By dawn, even the lists don't agree. Names repeat, pages vanish, and suspect becomes whoever was easiest to grab. Once they're inside, the questions begin. Not to discover truth, but to justify what's already been done. Many can't even understand what they're accused of. One mistranslated sentence can become proof. Across the country, jails fill up fast. When space runs out, due process is the first thing they stop caring about. The center wants updates: how many, how fast, how loud. The raid becomes a scoreboard, not an investigation. In the panic, intelligence becomes gossip. A name overheard in a breadline can travel straight into a midnight raid. The signal from above is urgency. On the ground, that urgency turns into force because force is the quickest tool available. When you need proof fast, anything can become proof. Ordinary objects get promoted into threats just to fill the file. A dragnet is supposed to catch something specific, but this one drags across everyone until the real danger disappears in the noise. By morning, the city looks normal again. But inside the stations, the night's chaos is still piled up, human, messy, unresolved. The story becomes victory before it becomes truth. Numbers look heroic in print, while the mistakes stay locked in the back rooms. Then the system asks the simplest question: where's the evidence? And suddenly, speed isn't a badge, it's a liability. This is what panic looks like in practice. Rules rewritten overnight. And years later, the country still argues about what that night cost. Before the biggest raids, there was already a pipeline. Arrest, process, remove. The machine was warming up and learning it could move people fast. Behind every raid is a paperwork engine. In rooms like this, identity becomes a card, and a card can become a life-changing accusation. After the night comes the waiting. Families line up for answers and discover the system doesn't move as fast when you ask for rights. Then someone finally reads the details, and one by one, cases collapse because fear wrote the arrests, but law still demands proof. When fear is the strategy, success becomes a number. The tally grows while the truth stays uncounted. The order comes from the center, the force comes from the street, and between them accountability disappears. Then the complaints begin quiet at first. People ask the same question over and over. On what grounds? When someone finally checks the details, the story changes. The raids look less like justice and more like a stampede. Some walk out hours later with nothing, no charges, no answers, just cold air, and the memory of a door kicked in. Here's the problem with grabbing first. Sometimes the case doesn't exist. No evidence, no timeline. Just a name and a mistake. And that's when pushback begins. Quiet rooms, determined voices, not defending radicals, defending the rules that protect everyone. The raids end, but the paperwork stays. Fear always leaves a trail filed away, waiting to be repeated. Even after the wagons leave, the neighborhood doesn't reset. People remember who knocked and how easily any door can be next. To the organizers, it looks like a win. Big totals, fast action, clean reports, but the paperwork can't hide what really happened. Then comes the test fear can't pass. A judge asks for facts, and suddenly, the big night starts falling apart piece by piece. The Palmer raids become a warning. When fear becomes policy, rights become optional, and security becomes a story you tell yourself. Even when the raids fade, the system stays. The methods get refined because the paperwork taught them what worked. In a fear season, every whisper becomes a lead. Informants, rumors, half-truths, anything that points to the next door. The raids don't just take people, they change behavior. Suddenly, everyone wonders who might be reporting them. Some effects never show up in the reports. Families packing in silence, trust breaking, and fear moving in for years. Somewhere, someone writes it down what happened, who was taken, what rules were broken, and the record starts fighting back. Now the story leaves the alleyways and enters a room with witnesses. The question isn't ideology, it's legality. It wasn't one rogue officer. It was a pattern repeated across cities because the system rewarded speed, not accuracy. The official narrative starts to crack because once you slow down and read, the victory looks like a rush job. Quietly, the system reverses itself. Release orders pile up because too many arrests can't survive a real review. Freedom doesn't feel clean after a night like that. People walk out alive, but something in them stays inside. Even when charges vanish, the file remains. In a fear era, being questioned once can follow you for years. The raid becomes a lesson, then a slogan. The messy parts get buried under cleaner words. Security, order, necessity. Some reports don't need politics to be damning. They just describe what happened. Broken rules, broken doors, broken trust. Even when someone admits mistakes, it rarely reaches the people who paid the price. An apology doesn't rebuild a life. Once a name is in the system, it can be pulled out anytime. The raid ends, but the suspicion stays reusable. That night taught a dangerous lesson. Fear moves faster than law. And once you learn that speed, someone will want to use it again. The problem wasn't just the raids. It was the gap afterward who checks the checkers when the country is scared. After a night like that, a template is born. Same steps, same shortcuts, ready to be reused the next time fear spikes. You can feel it in public spaces, everyone listening for the next alarm. Fear becomes the background noise of daily life. Names change Palmer, the Red Scare, whatever comes next. But the method survives. Rush first, justify later. Soon it isn't just an operation, it's a story. A myth of control, repeated until people forget the chaos behind it. A stamp can feel like armor. It turns messy reality into approved procedure, even when the procedure was broken. In systems built for speed, witnesses slow things down, and people who slow things down become easy to ignore. When you chase everyone, you catch no one. The real threat, if it exists, can slip away while the dragnet clogs itself. Long after the raids, the damage stays visible in splinters, broken locks, and people who never sleep the same again. In a panic, information becomes currency. People trade rumors for safety, and the system rewards whoever points first. This is where the raid breaks. Investigation needs patience. A dragnet needs only momentum, and momentum wins. Then comes the pivot. Not a speech, not a riot, just a file opened in court. And panic starts losing its grip. In the dark, anything feels justified. But when the lights come on, the scene looks like what it is. People, not threats. Try writing this into a clean report. Try making chaos sound lawful. Some things don't fit on forms. A badge can become a shortcut past consent, past questions, past the line that's supposed to protect the innocent. Years later, the Palmer raids read like a warning label. Fear can reorganize a nation faster than facts ever could. The pins stay where they were placed, a silent reminder that one night can redraw a nation's idea of acceptable. Once it works once, it becomes routine. The raid turns into a procedure, something you can repeat without thinking. Being arrested and released isn't a reset. The label sticks like ink that won't come off no matter how hard you scrub. And somewhere, a file waits quiet, labeled, ready to be pulled again the next time someone needs a quick enemy. Ask survivors what they remember, and it's the same loop. The knock, the light, the confusion. The night keeps replaying. The most dangerous part isn't one raid. It's the habit it teaches. When afraid, skip steps. When unsure, grab first. Not everyone went along. Some people pushed back slowly, stubbornly insisting the law still mattered in a panic. The Palmer raids leave one question behind. How much freedom will people trade before they notice what they lost? Some history doesn't disappear. It just gets filed where nobody looks until the same fear returns, wearing a new name. There's a moment when fear stops being emotion and becomes policy. That's when shortcuts turn into systems. Eventually, the city breathes again, but the memory remains proof that normal life can be interrupted by a single order. The Palmer raids aren't just a story from 1920. They're a warning. Panic can be organized faster than justice. Time doesn't erase what happened, it just covers it in dust. The files stay, waiting for someone to reopen the past. A single stamp can transform panic into procedure. It doesn't prove truth, it just makes the record look clean. Some people didn't lose a case, they lost a sense of safety. After that night, every lock feels temporary. It takes time for a country to admit it went too far, but once it does, the question becomes, will it remember next time? For years, this story lives like a footnote, small, forgettable, but it should have been a headline about how fast rights can vanish. The most chilling part is how ordinary it can look like a checklist. A raid planned like routine work, not a moral choice. One order becomes many hands, and once enough hands are moving, nobody feels responsible for where the force finally lands. The Palmer raids mark a clear moment. The line was crossed. And once crossed, it's easier to cross again. We call it safety, but sometimes it's just control wearing a uniform. And the difference matters, especially at night. January 2nd, 1920 wasn't just a raid, it was a lesson. Fear can be organized. The real question is, will we recognize it next time?